It's snowing. Clearly, it's snowing heavily. And it is New Year's Eve. And we are not working tonight. I got a message this morning saying, nope, don't bother. And then the next 2 days are my scheduled days off. So this is the start of a 3-day weekend for me. I just got a text message from one of my roommates. The power is out at our company housing. Now, normally I would blame North Star and Vail for their very uh, carefree attitude, we'll say, toward the living conditions of people who live in company housing in Kings Beach. But in this instance, it's probably just snow built up on a branch which fell on a power line someplace, and it is the local utility that will scramble to get things working again, which is good because it's also rich people who will be deprived of their electricity and not just the working stiffs. So it'll get repaired quickly. So I've got another AI art video sort of cooking in my head, but I want to go and make some notes for that before I attempt to shoot it. And probably go sit in, not McDonald's, there's no McDonald's here, probably go sit in Taco Bell. Oh, that's not a snowflake, that's just a patch of gray hair. Anyway, so I thought I would just do a quick 2022 in review. In years past, I would get together with Doug Lane and we'd do an end of the year podcast talking about what we thought the big developments were in this year. And, if you watch the mainstream press, the big developments are the war in Ukraine. I mean, sure, that's huge. I'm not saying it shouldn't be a story. What else is going on? I did a end of the year talk with my friend Kevin Lynn last year. We talked about what we thought the most important developments of the year were. And what we thought the most important stories of, not necessarily stories, but the most important developments of the coming year. And for me, it was easy. It's the James Webb Space Telescope. Now, possibly you haven't seen or heard a lot about it. I think what made the Hubble Space Telescope so popular with the public were the spectacular color graded images, false color images basically, of nebula and things like that were just gorgeous. And there's lots of James Webb versions of those same shots. In fact, you can find side by side shots of the same the same features as photographed by or visualized by the Hubble and James Webb. And the James Webb ones are more detailed. There's more information there for scientists, but they're not really prettier pictures. So I don't think they've made the rounds quite like the Hubble images did. All right. Well, the smart mic battery died, and I've moved to get a bit of shelter from the snow. So 2022. What else? For me personally, this snowmaking gig is going to be big. End of my 2-year relationship with Rose, the entirety of a 2-month relationship with another person, which was very intense and ended suddenly in a way that caused me to do some serious introspection, self work, and reach out for some professional therapeutic assistance, which I've been resisting for a very long time. This is not a video in which to spontaneously reflect on that, though. So I spent most of the year in Arkansas. I was born in Arkansas. I have lived in Arkansas for a few years as an adult, but most of my life has been spent elsewhere. But the time I spent there this year was at what is now my mother's house, and which for most of my life was my grandparents' house. Built by my grandfather, although I think I recall just calling it Grandma's house for most of my life. So anyway, it is a gorgeous day here, and I have absolutely no reason to go back to my apartment, which I'm informed has no electricity. So I'm going to go hang out at Taco Bell. I think they're only open until 4, so I better get over there. It's like going on 3 now. and sit there and take advantage of free refills and write in my Remarkable 2. I'll say this, I got the Remarkable 2 toward the end of summer, I think, and I've done a shit ton of writing in the thing. I was wondering, will it pay for itself? Will it justify the cost? Because it's not a cheap piece of tech, particularly given, what it lacks, which is to say color screen, animation, really anything close to just a basic text editing functions, of your basic word processing program. It's none of that's there. I mean, it's basically just a piece of paper, in a very clunky filing system. You can also do some handwriting to proper text translation, although I don't use that feature. I've played with it a couple times just to see how well it did with my handwriting, and the answer is not well enough to be useful. So I don't use that function. But I've done a lot of writing. I mean, it revived my morning pages ritual, WRITUAL, and beyond that, I've just been writing a lot in that thing. And it's kind of like, well, I'm thinking about it now. One, because it's the end of the year, and I'm thinking about what's happened this year and what I'm going to remember about this year. And Amazon now has a competing product, which works well with the Amazon ecosystem, including the Kindle library, and I have many hundreds of Kindle books, so that would be a useful thing for me. I've read various reviews, and basically they say, one, the Amazon thing does not have any handwriting to text translation features at all. They just skipped it. And, I think that's probably a safe thing to do, given how clunky the Remarkable 2 is in that department. What really appeals to me about the Amazon product, though, other than the better pricing and the fact that it is compatible, you can mark up your Kindle books with it, is the fact that it's got a lit screen. The Remarkable 2 is fun. It's really cool to take it outside in bright sunlight and look at it, and it just looks like a piece of paper, just like you're writing on a piece of paper. And it's really cool. You can see it easily. But, I think we're all used to accessing our devices and looking at screens in low light, because they provide their own light. And so my living spaces are set up such that the place where I'm likely to sit down, in a comfy chair and maybe do some reading or take some notes on something, they're probably not that well lit at night, and it's just kind of it's an emergent effect of staring at little glowing rectangles all the time that we don't worry so much about lighting the rooms that we're in, or at least I don't. I'm ascribing, my situation to all of you as well, and it probably doesn't fit some of you. 2022. What else? Well, I've been doing this series of videos about the response, like the very sort of unimaginative, reflexive, small-minded response of many artists to AI image generation. And, I say AI art because that's the tag. I mean, that is the hashtag, AI art. That's the topic. Lots of people, are of the opinion, or at least lots of people who post, lots of vocal people, are of the opinion that art created with an algorithm is not real art, that doesn't involve any human expressiveness. And I just know that to be false. But, well, anyway, I'll save all that for a different video. I'm just, recapping now the big things that have been of interest to me. And for me, 2022 has been a year in which computer-generated art, text-based or prompt-generated imagery has just leapt. It is so much better at the end of the year than it was at the beginning of the year. It's remarkable. And I don't know what 2023 holds, but I expect that the rapid progress in this area will continue, and that the complaints from artists who refuse to employ, algorithmic techniques in the creation of their art will become irrelevant. I mean, they're already irrelevant. Their complaints are, their complaints are impotent. Their demands, they basically have no means of enforcing their demands. They're not very organized. And what I think a lot of them are missing anyway. Here I am going into this topic. I said I wasn't. I'll get back to that in a later video. So, 2022, what else? I I think on the Ukraine story, I haven't followed the war closely. It's just not of great interest to me. Um, you can ascribe whatever judgment to that that you want, but it's not. I'm not into sports, and I don't follow wars closely. And I know that if you've been an unwilling participant in a war, or a war has happened in your country, or you know somebody who has died in a war, that sounds like a very callous and flippant statement. And I don't mean it that way, but there is. I mean, if you're into war, if you are following the details very closely, when you have no actual material interest in the day-to-day developments in that war, well, then it's a sport, it's a hobby, it is a pastime for you, it is an interest. And that's, I'm making no comment whatsoever on people who involuntarily have been subjected to the horrors of war. They have nothing but sympathy for me. And people who are into it and who follow it as a pastime, maybe some judgment, but nothing harsh, nothing that needs to be responded to, nothing that requires any sort of, or justifies even any sort of defensive response. But I don't follow it. I'm just not following it. I'm not following much of anything now, because I was working really hard, and work has been very easy recently. So much so that I've been able to do it with a bad back and not fall short. Whereas some of the stuff we were doing earlier in the season, I could not possibly have performed those tasks as I did, feeling the way I do now. On my back, goddamn. So the spasms which limited my mobility and kept me from sitting for many days on end, I have pretty much full range of motion now, but now my back just hurts all the time. And I fear that it has just learned to hurt. I don't know what to do about this, but I can do most of the things that I could do before the injury. But the pain, which used to signal me moving into an untenable position, is now just omnipresent. It's a bummer. I'm really over it. I'm really ready for this segment of my North Star experience to be over. I'm told that snowmaking is going to go till the end of January. Just as recently as last week, there was talk of wrapping up within the next couple weeks, and then we had a bunch of rain, which melted a bunch of snow, and now we need to make a bunch more, but there's also a bunch falling. So there's no telling. If it does go to the end of January, though, I think I might be tempted just to leave when snowmaking is over rather than going to a different department, but we'll see. As I've mentioned in a previous video, I am deliberately and consciously holding onto my plans for the future quite loosely. There's a very loose grasp on plans for the future. One thing that being at this job has put me in touch with is the fact that there is an ecosystem of like novel, interesting, dare we say, fun jobs that are seasonal, and that, when this season ends, another season begins, I could go do something else temporary. The idea of taking just full-time, open-ended, no predefined termination date W-2 employment just feels like death to me. All right. Well, on that very happy note, how about some predictions for 2023? I predict that if Putin avoids assassination, that the war in Ukraine will be ongoing at the end of 2023. I think the big piece of geopolitical importance that emerged from this was that Xi Jinping, looked at what on paper should have been a cakewalk for the Russian army, and which has turned into a quagmire, and maybe had some second thoughts about his Taiwan invasion timetable. I hope that's the case. And I hope China can free itself, of the autocratic rule of Xi Jinping. But, that's none of my business. I know a lot of Chinese people. at least a lot of Chinese people say they really, really like the guy, and they really like the Communist Party, and they really like the whole Chinese system, and yay, China. Well, I can go with yay, China, fine. Hopefully, I'm going to say the words 50 Cent Army. Hopefully, the AI is transcribing this. Don't sick the CCP and their 50 Cent Army on me. But if they do, so what? This video will get an unaccountable number of views, given that it's really not about much of anything other than me looking at the year past and speculating about the year future with no notes and no net. All right. Well, speaking of notes, I'm going to go write some notes and maybe put together another video, or maybe do it as a podcast. We'll see.